Saints Among Sinners, Part 4, The Amulet's Price, an Oblivion Remastered short story, Part 4, Born with a Silver Spoon. As the group journeyed onward, the distant city on the horizon began to loom ever larger, its towers and walls rising with every step. What had once been a faint silhouette was now revealed as a sprawling metropolis, its grandeur both intimidating and awe-inspiring. Sunlight glinted off the city's high ramparts, and the growing hum of civilization was a stark contrast to the wild lands they had traversed. The landscape around them was breathtaking, a patchwork of rolling green meadows dotted with wild flowers in full bloom. Bright butterflies flitted from blossom to blossom, their wings flashing iridescent colors in the sunlight. Overhead, birds sang and swooped gracefully, their melodies weaving through the gentle breeze and lending an air of peace to the countryside. Garrick let out a low whistle as he gazed at the city.
With a city that big, there's gotta be meat. Real meat. Ribeye or flank. I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. No offense, Saren. I have heard rumors of how highly you regard them.
His stomach rumbled audibly. Saren was quick to react.
A horse. A horse is a majestic and noble animal.
Featuring with her hand,
Try eating a cooked chicken instead.
Torvald grinned and shook his head.
Screw eating. First thing I'm doing is finding a tavern and drinking a mead the size of my arm.
With a large smile, he enthusiastically presented his arm as a sample size for the group to see. Saren smirked, not missing a beat.
Forget mead, I'm going to drink a beer the size of a sword.
Rashad went in a different direction.
I miss the smell of fresh brewed coffee and a pastry to dip it into and cream. Ah.
Despite the banter, the party moved with urgency. Thaddeus, still unconscious, was being dragged along in a makeshift stretcher accompanied by a haphazard pile of loot. The group's pace was brisk, driven by the need to get Thaddeus the care he so desperately needed. Before they could reach the gates, Garrick abruptly raised his arm, signaling the party to halt. He began to mentally kick himself for allowing the group to fall in such a blatant trap.
Stop moving. We are surrounded,
Garrick said quietly. The others looked around, seeing nothing out of the ordinary, but Garrick crouched and gestured to the ground, then swept his hand in a wide arc around them. He held up 10 fingers. Torvald frowned in confusion.
What are you doing with your hands? Why 10 fingers? Oh.
It became clear 10 hidden figures, most likely rangers, had been shadowing their progress, expertly concealing themselves from view. They rose from the ground, arrows ready, clad in tan cloaks that blended in perfect with nature around them. Now, as if on cue, a troop of knights clad in gleaming silver and gold armor rode out to meet them. The horses' hooves clattered on the paved road that led into the gates of the massive metropolis. The knights' crested helms shone in the afternoon light as they formed a defensive barrier between the travelers and the city gates. The mounted knights ended their rapid advancement feat away from the group with a sudden and dramatic stop. The horses, sensing the tension, stamped their hooves aggressively, snorting and tossing their heads. The sound of iron-shod horses clamping against the earth echoed menacingly, and the animals' restless movements were anything but welcoming. With each stomp and impatient paw at the ground, the horses pressed forward, forcing the group to retreat step by step. The unspoken warning was clear. They were not to advance any further. Burdened by the weight of their loot and the makeshift stretcher carrying Thaddeus, Garrick hesitated. The urgency that had propelled them forward now gave way to caution. The city's promise of sanctuary and healing felt agonizingly close, yet the hostility of the knights and their steeds made it seem just out of reach. For a moment, all was still, the wildflowers trembling in the breeze, butterflies scattering at the commotion, and birds circling overhead as if sensing the tension below. The group exchanged wary glances, waiting to see what would happen next. One of the mounted knights nudged his horse a step ahead of the line. His deep blue cloak fluttered behind him, and though his armor gleamed, his face was strikingly young, cheeks still smooth, eyes wide with a mixture of duty and apprehension beneath the brim of his helm. He raised a gloved hand, voice stern, but betraying a hint of nervousness as it echoed across the road.
Hold! Who goes there?
Before Garrick or any of his companions could respond, another knight, older and more perceptive, interjected sharply.
Put your hand down, fool. Can't you see these are adventurers?
He scolded the younger knight.
Just look at them. They clearly come from battle for our city. How could you mistake them for the undead? The one in the back is injured. Let us tend to him quickly.
The first knight, clearly flustered and a bit embarrassed by his mistake, lowered his hand and stepped aside. As the knights conversed, the rangers melted back into the dense underbrush at the road's edge, their cloaks a mottled blend of tan and green that allowed them to disappear simply and completely into the natural surroundings. Bows remained drawn, arrows ready, but not a sound betrayed their presence. They watched the tree line and the winding road with hawk-like vigilance, eyes scanning for the telltale shamble of undead. It was clear from their practiced movements that these rangers waited until the last possible moment, allowing the undead to draw perilously close before striking with swift, silent precision. In this way, not a single creature was given the chance to escape and warn others, the forest floor bearing silent witness to their deadly efficiency.
I apologize,
the knight said, his tone softening.
Who is that injured adventurer behind you on the stretcher?
Garrick was quick to explain that Thaddeus was merely unconscious for overuse of magic. The bewildered knight nodded in understanding and offered for their insight to his rudeness.
We are attacked by the undead almost daily. Just yesterday, a dungeon appeared beneath our town. When a dungeon appears, the entire city runs great risks of the undead spilling out and everyone falling under the undead king's dominion.
The gravity of his words hung heavy in the air, and the group exchanged uneasy glances. Torvald pressed forward.
I am sorry, I don't understand. You have a dungeon that must be cleared, or the undead will spill out. What does that mean?
One of the younger knights, his blue cloak billowing as he dismounted, swung down from his horse with practiced ease, though a slight tremor in his hands betrayed his nerves. He approached Thaddeus, who lay slumped at the edge of the road, his breathing shallow but steady. The knight knelt beside Thaddeus, his armor softly clinking, and carefully pressed 2 fingers to the side of the man's neck, searching for a pulse. He leaned close, listening for breath, then gently lifted an eyelid to check for a response. Satisfied that Thaddeus was unconscious but not in immediate mortal danger, the knight let out a small, relieved sigh. He stood and turned to Garrick, his youthful face set with concern.
He's alive, his pulse is strong, and his breathing's regular. I don't see any grave wounds, just exhaustion, or perhaps a spell's after effect. He needs rest, but he should recover. His heart beats strong.
The young knight, climbing down from his horse, responded to Torvald's question, his voice grave.
The undead start by creating a dungeon, most likely from a confidant who snuck into the city. They leave a crystal connected to their realm as a foothold of sorts, and then with magic work to connect into our city. They can overtake towns by creating a bridge between their stronghold and spill hundreds of undead from their ranks, usually overpowering the cities. Some can be sealed, but others cannot. Some cities use dungeons to gain money and train troops,
he ended most grimly.
We need heroes to clear the dungeon and destroy the boss to close the rift and save the city.
Garrick, ever the pragmatist, pressed for more information.
And where exactly is here?
He asked, eyeing the knights warily. The lead guard straightened his posture, pride swelling in his voice.
You stand before the Night's Watch of Veyrun's gate. We are the last stronghold before the border of the undead king's kingdom.
He continued, his voice tinged with sorrow.
Ours was once a land of 7 mighty cities. The first to fall was Levengard, near the coast. The second, Crestwood, vanished without a trace after its dungeon went uncleared. No word has come from there 8 days since its dungeon suddenly appeared. Only silence.
The mention of the fallen cities sent a chill through the group, a stark reminder of the peril that surrounded them.
But we are fortunate,
The knight went on.
for our city is protected by a powerful relic, the golden orb of Kahala. It repels any undead or demonic presence for a mile around our walls. Without it, we would have surely fallen like the others.
The group could sense the reverence in his voice as he spoke of the orb, understanding its significance to the city's survival. Garrick, still seeking clarity, asked,
If this is the city, then what continent are we on?
The guard answered without hesitation, but clearly puzzled by the questions.
This is Falujamar, a land now beset by darkness.
He gestured toward the map etched into the city's gate, pointing out the remaining bastions of hope.
There are 5 main cities still standing against the darkness.
The knight explained.
Veyrun's Gate, where you now stand. Ironvale, the fortified city to the north. Serafel, the mystical port on the western coast. Goldmere, the merchant haven in the east. And at the heart of the continent, Marxian, the greatest of them all. Marxian has become a beacon, gathering armies, mages, and adventurers from across the realm. Each city fights desperately to hold back the tide. But with every passing day, the undead king's reach grows longer, and the struggle becomes ever more dire.
The group fell silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of what they had just heard. Garrick exchanged a glance with Torvald, both men silently acknowledging the gravity of their situation. They had faced danger before, but never on a scale that threatened entire civilizations. Garrick's curiosity, however, was not so easily sated.
Have you ever heard of a land called Tamriel?
He asked, hoping for some sign that they might not be as lost as they felt. The knight shook his head, his expression apologetic.
No, I can't say I have ever heard of that land.
Torvald quickly followed up, his voice tinged with desperation.
How about Skyrim or the continent of Atmora?
Again the knight shook his head, his brow furrowing in concern.
I am sorry, but those names mean nothing to me. If you are travelers from afar, you have come to us at a time of great need. Perhaps your skills will help turn the tide.
As the group approached the city's main gate, the sheer scale of the city of Veyrun became apparent, not just in its towering ramparts, but in the formidable force assembled to defend it. Rows upon rows of armored knights stood at attention, their armor polished to a dazzling sheen that caught the afternoon sun and sent shards of light dancing across the stone courtyard. Each knight bore the city's crest upon their breastplate, and their expressions were grim, their eyes scanning every newcomer with unwavering vigilance. The clang of boots and the low murmur of orders echoed off the walls, a constant reminder that this was a city on the brink, its defenders ever alert for the next threat from beyond. The party approached the registration desk, the city's towering walls casting long shadows over them. Sir Garrick led the way, his jaw set with determination, followed by Aldrin, Saren, Rashad, Thaddeus, and Jorik, whose hands were fumbling continually over the gold ring taken from the lynch. The city's gates yawned open before them, and the hum of life within was palpable. Veyrun's Gate was a metropolis unlike any they'd seen, its broad avenues teeming with people of every race and trade. A tall, broad-shouldered guard stepped forward from behind a registration desk. His armor was polished to a mirror shine, and his stern face softened only slightly as he greeted them.
Welcome to Veyrun's Gate.
He announced in a deep, practiced voice.
I am Captain Hallmer, Chief of the Gate Watch. Before you may enter, each of you must have your finger pricked for identification.
Captain Halmar gestured to a scribe beside him who held a small silver needle and a ledger.
It's city law.
Halmar continued.
Everyone who enters must be added to the master map. This allows us to track your location at all times while you're within the city walls, for your safety and ours. Registration is not optional.
He gave them a look that brooked no argument, and the scribe prepared to record their names and take their blood.
In addition,
Halmar said,
there is an entrance fee of 25 gold coins per person. In exchange, you'll each receive a personal map enchanted to track your entire party, so you can always find one another while you're here.
The guards waited patiently as the party paid the fee, pricked their fingers, and watched as their names appeared on a glowing master map behind the desk. Captain Halmar waited, flanked by the scribe and 2 more guards.
Step forward, one at a time,
he instructed. Garrick went first, offering his hand stoically as the silver needle pricked his finger. The scribe dabbed the blood onto a glowing crystal, and Garrick's name shimmered onto the master map. He was handed a small enchanted parchment, a party map, its surface swirling with magical script. Aldrin followed, his scholarly curiosity piqued by the ritual.
Fascinating,
he murmured, watching as his own name appeared on the map. Saren winced at the prick, but managed a wry smirk.
I've had worse from a jealous fence in Mournhold,
she quipped, tucking her map away. Rashad accepted the process with stoic calm, his dark eyes scanning the city beyond as he paid his fee. Thaddeus was tested as he lay unconscious, tended to by a city guard. Yorick, a pale look upon his face, managed a weak grin as the scribe marked him down. All the while, the knights maintained their formation, forming a living barrier that would be nearly impossible to breach. Their presence was more than ceremonial. Each bore a sword at their hip and a shield slung across their back, ready to spring into action at the slightest provocation. The party could feel the weight of 100 eyes upon them, every movement measured and watched for signs of danger. Even beyond the desk, the city's main avenue stretched wide and inviting, but the entrance itself was a bottleneck, deliberately so. The knights controlled the flow of people with military precision, allowing only a handful through at a time. Behind the party, a line of merchants, travelers, and adventurers waited their turn, watched over by yet more knights stationed along the walls and atop the gatehouse. Every so often, a horn would sound or a runner would dash up with news from a patrol, and the ranks would shift seamlessly, a testament to the rigorous training and discipline of Veyrun's defenders. Captain Halmar's eyes narrowed with concern the moment he saw Thaddeus. Looking at the unconscious man in the makeshift stretcher, Captain Halmar asked,
"What's with Sleeping Beauty?"
Garrick responded quickly,
He overused himself with a dangerous spell. Can you direct us to your nearest hospital?
When registration is completed, we will make sure he is taken quickly to our Adventurers Hospital. It's a special hospital with the best healers and physicians in our city, said Captain Halmar.
Once the formalities were complete, Halmar handed them their payment receipts and offered a nod of approval.
You'll want a place to rest after your journey. The nearest inn is the Silver Lantern, just down the main street.
At that, the party's Nord companion, Torvald, stepped forward, his eyes alight with anticipation.
Which inn has the best food?
He asked, his deep voice rumbling with interest. Halmar grinned, the first hint of warmth on his face.
That would be the Hearthstone Hall near the Market Square. Tell the innkeeper I sent you, and they'll see you well fed and well rested.
Halmar looked back at the group.
Are you here to clear the dungeon? The regent of the city placed a reward of 25,000 gold and a title with land to the individual who can clear it.
The group looked at each other.
Where can we find this dungeon, Captain?
Said Yorick,
It's located on your map here.
as he pointed it out on the map.
Armorers, blacksmiths, potion shops, and all manner of vendors line the entrance.
As the party gathered their belongings and prepared to enter the city, the sounds and scents of Veyrun's gate beckoned to them. Freshly baked bread from a nearby stall, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer in the distance, and the lively chatter of townsfolk going about their day. This city offered a sense of hope and anticipation which filled the group. With their registration complete and a destination in mind, they stepped through the towering gates, ready to discover what adventures awaited within the city's walls. Yet even as they crossed the threshold, the presence of the knights was never far from their minds. Patrols marched in disciplined columns down the main avenues, their armor clinking in time with their steps. At every major intersection, squads of knights stood watch, eyes ever vigilant for trouble. Even the market squares and taverns bore the mark of the city's martial spirit. Knights took their meals in shifts, their weapons always within reach, their laughter tinged with the edge of exhaustion. The people of Veyrun's Gate had grown accustomed to living under the watchful gaze of their protectors, and while some grumbled about the strict laws and constant surveillance, most seemed grateful for the security the knights provided. Captain Halmar whistled loudly, and several guards approached. Even as a healer knelt to draw a blood sample, checking for any lingering curses or poisons from the undead, Halmar was already barking orders.
"We need him at the Adventurers' Hospital now. Priority case,"
he commanded, his voice cutting through the noise of the returning adventurers. Within moments, a pair of city knights had materialized at his side, assembling a better, cleaner stretcher and clearing a path through the throng. The knights moved with practiced efficiency, forming an escort around Thaddeus as he was lifted, ensuring nothing would delay their passage through the busy streets of Veyrun's Gate. As the stretcher disappeared into the crowd, Halmar turned to Garrick, urgency in his voice.
"What happened out there?"
he pressed, leading Garrick and others at a brisk pace toward the hospital. Garrick recounted the chaos.
We were surrounded. Undead everywhere. More than I've ever seen. Then, he summoned a wall of fire erupting across the field, like a barrier from the gods. The flames swept through the horde, burning them to ash. Nothing survived it.
Halmar's eyes widened, clearly impressed by the tale.
"A wall of fire. That's not something the Regent will want to hear secondhand. He's meeting every adventurer himself, and after what you've seen, you'll be a priority."
Before following Thaddeus into the hospital, Garrick gathered his companions, Jorik, Saren, Aldrin, Torvald, and Rashad, at the entrance.
"Go to the inn, get rooms, and eat something hot,"
he instructed, his voice steady despite his exhaustion.
"Jorik, Saren, sort through the loot and sell anything we don't need. Hold on to as much coin as you can. We might need it soon."
The group nodded, understanding the urgency, and set off toward the market. Before splitting up, Torvald, ever the Nord with an appetite, reminded them of the other recommendation.
"Let's at least try the Hearthstone Hall for supper tonight, and to drink more mead than we should. Captain Halmar said it's the best in the city, and I want a flask the size of Saren's sword."
They agreed, making plans to meet there after selling their loot. The promise of food, drink, and healing was tantalizingly close, but so was the reminder that they were nearly coinless. With his friends dispatched and Thaddeus in the care of the healers, Garrick turned back to Captain Halmar, who motioned him inside.
"Rest while you can,"
Halmar said, motioning to a seat next to Thaddeus's bed.
"Once your friend wakes, the Regent will want every detail. What you witnessed could change everything for Veyrun's Gate."
Garrick nodded, the weight of their story settling on his shoulders as he sat down, feeling the breeze from the hospital's cool, stone halls. Garrick sat, finally allowing himself to relax a little, even though it was not easy. A physician and healer were already attending Thaddeus and positing him into a private room. Captain Halmar thought to himself as he left, how he wished more adventurers acted like Garrick. Torvald, Saren, Aldrin, and the group reached their first destination, the Silver Lantern, the nearest inn as directed by Captain Halmar. The inn was a sturdy, timbered building with a swinging lantern sign and flower boxes in every window. Inside, the common room was lively but not rowdy, filled with travelers, merchants, and locals alike. The innkeeper, a stout woman with a ready smile, greeted them and quickly arranged for rooms, one for the wounded and Garrick, and two more for the rest of the party.
I have set you up in the Markham Suites. It's 3 rooms, one with twin beds, the other with 3 full beds, and the third room with 2 beds. Payment is due upon check-in at 4 o'clock p.m. Total cost is 20 silvers a day,
She said, as she looked a little demurely at them. Torvald smiled to her and turned around to make a frown to the group.
Time to make some money now.
We need money.
Saren muttered, eyeing the city's bustling market district beyond the walls.
No coin, no stake, no mead, and no gear.
Torvald grunted, hefting one of the battered shields from their loot pile.
Well, we've got plenty to sell. Let's find a smith who knows the value of good steel.
The group gathered their haul. 12 long swords, a few short swords, 10 shields, and a jumble of mismatched armor pieces, some gleaming, others pitted and worn. They also had the staff to sell, but that would wait. As they made their way through the city, the sheer scale of Veyrun's gate became even more apparent. They passed the Hearthstone Hall itself, a grand, stone-walled inn with a roaring hearth visible through the open doors. The scent of spiced stew and fresh bread wafted out, and a bard's song drifted over the clatter of tankards. Next door was the Gilded Lily, a more refined establishment with crystal chandeliers and a menu boasting river trout, honeyed pheasant, and imported wines. For those craving something quick and hearty, the iron kettle offered steaming bowls of stew and thick slices of brown bread, served at rough wooden tables to a crowd of laborers and city guards. Across the square, the merchants' table specialized in exotic fare, skewered meats, saffron rice, and sweet pastries from distant lands. Armor shops were clustered near the city's central plaza. The first, Dragonhide Armory, gleamed with polished steel and scale mail in the windows, its proprietor a grizzled veteran eager to show off his wares. Next door, the Silver Guard featured lighter, more elegant armor, chain shirts, reinforced leathers, and even enchanted cloaks for those with coin to spare. A third shop, Bastion and Buckle, specialized in custom fittings. 2 blacksmiths' locations caught the party eyes. The first, Hammerfall Forge, was run by a burly orc whose hammers rang out day and night, producing swords, axes, and shields of exceptional quality. The second, Ember and Anvil, was smaller but looked much more trafficked. A polished wooden sign above the door bore the emblem of a blazing anvil, and beneath it the words, "Honest Trade, Mastercraft." Inside Ember and Anvil was a testament to disciplined artistry. The stone floor gleamed, swept clean of soot and filings. Racks of weapons stood in perfect rows, each blade polished to a mirror sheen, and suits of armor gleamed on mannequins, their surfaces free of even the faintest fingerprint. The air was thick with the scent of coal and hot metal, but also carried a faint trace of lavender oil, a subtle touch that spoke to the owner's pride in his establishment. Behind the counter stood the shop's owner, Edrin Vol, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a meticulously trimmed beard and sharp, steel-gray eyes. His apron was spotless, and his hands, though calloused, moved with the careful precision of a jeweler as he polished a breastplate to a high shine. He looked up as the party entered, his gaze sweeping over their ragtag appearance and the pile of loot they carried with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Torvald strode forward, chest out and chin high.
We've got 12 swords, short swords, 10 shields, and assorted armor. All quality. What'll you give us?
Edrand set down his cloth, stepping out from behind the counter. He inspected the items with a practiced eye, lifting a sword and testing its balance, then setting it down with a faint, unimpressed snort.
Some of this is old and rusted. Not worth much. I'll give you 5 silver for the lot.
Torvald's face reddened.
5 silver. That's robbery. These swords saw battle against the Black Wolves, and the shields are sturdy oak.
Edrin cut him off with a curt wave, clearly not buying it.
Battle-worn or not, rust is rust. I can't sell what won't hold an edge, and I don't pay for stories.
Torvald slammed a fist on the counter, rattling a row of daggers.
You'd melt them down yourself and make twice as much.
Rashad, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward, his tone calm but edged with authority.
Perhaps, but you know as well as I do that the steel in these blades is of high quality. Yes, some are old, but once melted down, they'll yield metal fit for exquisite weaponry. Surely, a master smith like yourself can see the potential.
Edrin paused, his eyes narrowing, as he regarded Rashad with newfound respect. He picked up another sword, running a thumb along its fuller, then nodded slightly.
You know your steel,
he admitted.
Fine, I'll give you 15 silver, but not a copper more.
Saren leaned in, voice low and eyes sharp.
15 silver for all this? You'd insult us and your own reputation. These shields alone are worth more, and the chainmail, look at the links, nearly flawless.
Edrin's lips tightened, but he didn't look away.
20 silver, then, my final offer.
Rashad's eyes flicked to the pristine racks, the well-tended floor, the subtle scent of lavender oil. He saw a man who valued reputation as much as profit. He stepped forward, voice smooth as silk, every word deliberate.
100 gold, and you get the lot. Otherwise, we take our business to Iron Hands across the street. Word travels fast in this city, and we'd hate for yours to be known for shortchanging adventurers, especially with so many mercenaries passing through. Men and women who trust us to know where their coin is best spent.
Edrin's gaze hardened, but he could see the determination in their faces and the truth of Rashad's words. He glanced at the swords, the shields, the armor, and finally nodded.
100 gold, and I'll throw in a set of whetstones and oil, but that's as high as I'll go.
Rashad didn't miss a beat, his tone sharpening just enough to press the advantage.
150. You know you'll make double that once you reforge and sell them. And we'll tell every mercenary in the city where to find the fairest smith. Your reputation is worth more than a handful of gold, Edrin.
Edrin grumbled, but after a moment he relented, a grudging smile breaking through his stern demeanor.
Fine, 150 gold. But if you bring me rusty scrap again, I'll pay you in coppers and curses.
Rashad inclined his head, sealing the deal with a handshake as crisp as the shop itself.
Agreed. And should we come across finer spoils, you'll be the first to see them.
As the party collected their gold, Rashad lingered a moment longer. He leaned in, voice confidential.
I have other wares, arcane, rare, not for the open market. Where would a man go for such things and get the best coin?
Edrin's eyes glinted with interest, but he kept his voice low.
You want the gilded sigil in the arcane quarter. Ask for Master Othran. Tell him Edrin Vol sent you, and you'll get a fair hearing. But mind your tongue. Othran's clever, and magic's a dangerous trade.
Rashad smiled, the deal done, and the next step already in motion.
Thank you, Edrin Volume. May your forge burn bright.
The shopkeeper nodded, his respect for Rashid clear.
And may your luck hold, merchant.
As the party's business at the Ember and Anvil concluded, Rashad lingered, his eyes drifting to the neighboring shop across the square. A narrow, stone-fronted building with a sign in the shape of a gleaming blade. The sword shop's owner, a burly man with a mane of iron-gray hair and a thick curling mustache, was wiping down a display of polished long swords. His name, as Rashad recalled from the sign above the door, was Master Halvard. Rashad approached, his step unhurried, and his gaze appraising the neat rows of weapons. Halvard looked up, his deep-set eyes shrewd and quick.
Looking for a blade, traveler? Or perhaps to sell one?
His voice was gravelly, but not unfriendly. Rashad offered a polite nod, lowering his voice.
I deal in more than steel, Master Halvard. I have items of a rarer sort, arcane, and not for the common market. I'm told a man of your experience might know where such things fetch their true value.
Halvard's mustache twitched in amusement, but his eyes grew wary.
You're wise not to hawk magic in the open market. Too many eyes, too many thieves. But I know who can help.
He leaned in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper.
Seek out the Gilded Sigil in the Arcane Quarter. Ask for Master Othran. He's the only one who'll pay what your wares are worth. And he won't cheat you, if you know how to bargain.
Rashad smiled, sensing an opening.
And if I were to mention your name, would it earn me a fairer hearing?
Halvard grinned, revealing a gold tooth.
Tell him Halvard sent you, and he'll know you're no fool. But mind your tongue. Othran's sharp as a serpent and twice as cautious.
Rashad inclined his head in thanks, then let his gaze linger on a finely balanced rapier in the display.
You have an eye for quality, Master Halvard. Perhaps, when my business is concluded, I'll return for a blade worthy of a man who deals in both steel and secrets.
Halvard's laughter rumbled through the shop, and he clapped Rashad on the shoulder.
I'll hold you to that, merchant. Good luck with your dealings.
With both shopkeepers' recommendations secured, Rashad and his companions navigated the winding alleys of Veyrun. Rashad frequently consulted the map Halvard had pressed into his hand, the route marked in precise, looping script. Eventually they reached the Gilded Sigil, its golden rune sign swinging above a door inlaid with brass filigree and shimmering with protective wards. Inside, the shop was a trove of arcane curiosities, shelves bowed under the weight of ancient tomes, vials of swirling liquid, and artifacts that hummed with dormant power. Floating globes cast shifting light over glass cases filled with rings, star metal daggers, and a silver-thorned crown. The air was thick with incense and the faint crackle of magic. Master Othran, the shopkeeper, was a presence as formidable as any relic. His silver beard was neatly braided, his indigo and gold robes embroidered with constellations and runes. His eyes, pale as moonstone, flickered with intelligence and a touch of wariness. He wore an emerald ring that glimmered with enchantment. He looked up as the party entered, his gaze sharp and curious.
Welcome, travelers. What brings you to my humble shop?
Rashad stepped forward, reaching into his inventory, a process that felt as natural as breathing, thanks to the magic of his world. He mentally selected the golden staff and, with a shimmer, it materialized in his hand. The staff was nearly 6 feet of polished solid gold with a slight green glow. A hand grip was present with black hue. Othran's eyes widened instantly. He drew in a sharp breath, his magical senses flaring.
By the 8,
he murmured, voice reverent.
That is no ordinary relic. The aura alone.
He reached out, his fingers trembling, but stopped short of touching it.
I can feel the necromantic energy from here. The runes are inlaid with true electrum unseen to the naked eye. Hidden in the tip is a small golden orb, and that orb, a soul prism, if I'm not mistaken.
Rashad nodded, but lacked the understanding to fully comprehend.
Taken from a necromancer's undead hands.
While adding more weight on the final word,
forcibly, Halvard said you'd know its worth, and pay accordingly.
Othran's eyes never left the staff. He muttered an incantation, his ring glowing faintly. Arcane sigils flickered in the air, and the staff responded, pulsing in time with his words.
Extraordinary. The craftsmanship is ancient, perhaps Matium or older. The soul prism is still active, dangerous, but priceless. This could turn the tide of a war, or start one.
Rashad then produced something his party did not see him take from his inventory, a golden crown, the item appearing in his hands with a familiar, weightless ease. Othran's gaze snapped to it, his magical senses clearly overwhelmed by the twin presences of the staff and the crown.
You bring me wonders today.
He breathed. He gestured, and a shimmering aura enveloped the crown.
Analyze.
He intoned, his voice resonating with power. Arcane glyphs danced around the artifact, revealing layers of enchantment, protection, command, perhaps even hidden memories. Othrin's eyes widened further.
This crown. It was worn by a ruler of old, imbued with potent wards and the authority to command lesser spirits.
He repeated the process with the staff.
Analyze.
And the shop filled with a faint spectral wind as the staff's secrets were revealed. The soul prism's capacity, the necromantic runes, and the staff's ability to channel deadly energies. Othrin stepped back, visibly awed.
You and your companions are either very brave or very fortunate. These are not just relics, they are legends. I must have them.
He reached beneath the counter and withdrew 2 heavy pouches. With a practiced flourish, he tapped each with his emerald ring. The gold coin within shimmered and dissolved into golden motes, drifting toward Rashad and vanishing into his inventory. A familiar notification flickered at the edge of Rashad's vision. The gold was now weightless, no burden to carry no matter how vast the sum.
8,000 gold for the staff, 5,000 for the crown.
Othrin declared, his voice still tinged with awe.
And my gratitude for keeping such power from less scrupulous hands.
Rashad inclined his head, a sly smile curving his lips as he shook Othrin's unused hand.
We have a deal,
he ended.
No, I could have asked for more, but I want to establish a relationship with you.
As Rashad finished securing the transaction, Othrin leaned in conspiratorially, lowering his voice.
If you or your companions ever come across rare jewels, emeralds, diamonds, sapphires, or anything of unusual quality, let me know at once. I have an arrangement with a specialist shop that deals exclusively in such rarities. They pay premium coin, far above what you'd find in the city's common markets, and they ship items of exceptional value across the entire kingdom. With my recommendation, your treasures will always find the right buyer and the right price.
Rashad commented.
We'll keep you in mind for future finds, Master Othrin.
Othrin's eyes twinkled.
If you or your companions come across anything of value, artifacts, enchanted arms, or even simple treasures, bring them to me. I pay premium coin and offer discretion. You'll find no better offer in Veyrun, nor a more appreciative audience.
Saren grinned, nudging him.
Remind me never to play cards with you. Handsome and with a silver tongue on you.
As the party exited the gilded sigil, Tovard clapped Rashad on the back with a hearty laugh.
Who knew you had such a silver tongue, Rashad?
Rashad allowed himself a small, satisfied smile.
I did,
he replied, voice low and amused. In a city of secrets and shadows, it paid to know the right names and to speak them well. Stay tuned for Part 5. We hope you enjoy this short story and ask that you like and subscribe for more content like this.